and I love them. I have a great audience who is usually very technical and loves to get into the details and being told that they are wrong, which is the best audience you can ask for. And so, now the show is actually among the 1.5% most popular shows out of almost 4 million podcasts globally. So, I could not have guessed that at all. And interestingly, I didn't create the show actually for it to be listened to, but I created it for it.
Hey everyone, welcome to One Thing That Worked. Today my guest is Alex Andorra, who is a host of Learning Bayesian Statistics Podcast. It's the only podcast about the topic in existence. So Alex, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you, Sergey. Well done on pronouncing my name and the name of the podcast at the same, in the same sentence. I know it's hard. So thanks a lot. As you were saying, one of my main things is I have these podcasts since 2019 now called Learning Bayesian Statistics. It's not a very original name, but when I created it, actually, I didn't know anything about Bayesian statistics. I was reorienting my career at the time. I studied management and political science, so nothing to do with what I do today. Now I'm a senior scientist, a research scientist. And so I do very mathy statistical stuff. And I do a lot of open source development, but at the time I didn't at all. And so that's how I started the show. I learned a lot through podcasts. I listened to a lot of those. So congrats, by the way, on doing so many episodes. I've looked on, I've stalked you, of course, before the show. That's the great thing of being a podcaster. You get to stalk people professionally. I was super impressed by the number of episodes you have. I know it's hard work. So really, really well done. I'm very happy to be one of your guests. And basically the show, I started it because I learned a lot through podcasts. And at the time there were no podcasts about Bayesian stats. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, man, that'd be cool to have a podcast like that, regularly, so that basically I can get to hear from the best in the field. And then I was like, actually, why don't I try to do that? At the time, I was a really clueless professional out of university. I didn't like my job, and so I was like, I have nothing to offer to people I reach out to. But I was like, but if I reach out to them and I'm like, hey, you want to come talk for 1 hour and we'll record it, and then afterwards people will listen to it, maybe they will accept. And that's what happened, basically. So that was very, very selfish at the beginning, because I was like, I'm going to get to basically interview one of the best, statistics professors in the world, somebody who is at the top of his field or her field. And then I get to suck in the knowledge for 1 hour and then share that with the world. So at the beginning, it was a very selfish enterprise, let's say. But now it turns out there is a lot of nerds out there like me. And so they listen to the show, which is awesome. And I love them. I have a great audience who is usually very technical and loves to get into the details and being told that they are wrong, which is the best audience you can ask for. And so now the show is actually among the 1.5% most popular shows out of almost 4 million podcasts globally. So I could not have guessed that at all. And interestingly, I didn't create the show actually for it to be listened to, but I created it for me. Basically, I created the show I needed. And very happy I did, because it took me on a wild adventure.
Well, listen, congrats on first of all, 161 episodes. So, I'm only at 80. So you got twice as many. So this is really, really cool. Let me proceed to asking you my go-to question for this show. What would you say is the one thing, one decision or habit or strategy that boosted this show, this podcast the most? So what worked the most?
Yeah, I think actually there are two things, but I'll start with one and then you can ask me for a second thing if you want. But so first, before answering, I should probably define a bit what Bayesian statistics is, because otherwise like people will be like, what the hell is that? So there are mainly two ways of doing statistics, if you want, in the world. There is the classic way you're taught at university, which is called frequentist. And there is another way of doing it. Both have a different way of coming at probabilities, basically differently. So they define probability differently, and that means the way you then do statistics is different. But interestingly, in the long run, that means as you get more data, both kind of statistics converge towards the same result. So mainly it matters when you're in a low data regime, which is actually most of the case most of the time when you work on that. And so why is it called Bayesian? It's after Reverend Thomas Bayes, who in, I think it's the 17th century, if I remember correctly, basically discovered that formula, which now has his name, Bayes formula, which is basically the way to optimally update your belief mathematically based on data you observe. Okay, so if, for instance, your prior belief about me, Sergey, is that I'm actually an alien, you have a prior belief on that, which is a prior probability, okay, which I hope is very low. But then you observe something, I don't know, you secretly come and draw my blood at night, and then you see that my blood is actually blue. So you observe data, you just observe data. Now, how should you update your prior belief about me being an alien based on my blood being blue? You should update it aggressively. Like before, your probability should have been very low, but now you should update it very aggressively. But by how much? That's exactly what Bayes formula will tell you. Like basically, it's a very simple formula. Actually, you can Google it, and based on what you believed before observing anything and what you just observed, it gives you the posterior probability that I'm an alien. That's called a posterior probability because it's after observing data. So basically, that's that. That's the way of doing statistics in the Bayesian framework. It's a great framework to use when you don't have a lot of data, when you have some prior knowledge about the phenomenon you're observing, and when you need uncertainty estimation. This is extremely useful. So that's why it's used a lot in medical settings. It's used a lot by insurances, sports betting, sports analytics, electoral forecasting, lots of things. In marketing, it's used a lot also. So yeah, like you'll see that a lot. Basically, that's Bayesian stats. Okay, so that's what I do. That's what I talk about on the show with experts. Now, what was one of the main things that worked, I think, for the show being where it is right now? A very boring thing, honestly. I think it's just regularity and frequency. Like just since September 2019, whatever happened in my life, and a lot of things happened, good and bad, I had an episode released every 2 weeks. Clockwork. And yeah, like basically it builds a habit, not only on my end, but I think also on the listeners, where it's like, the show becomes a part of their routine. I know lots of listeners listen to it when they work out, when they run, or when they go for a walk, or when they walk their dog, or where they do the dishes, stuff like that. And basically, yeah, having that regularly come into their inbox basically made the show part of their routine. So in a way, a very boring thing, but yeah, like being persistent often in life is going to help you a lot. And here, that's the case.
Do you know on average how many people listen to you monthly?
Yeah, it's like it varies. Of course, it depends on the episodes and how I have on there, and it's also seasonal. But most of the time, it's a few, tens of thousands.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I told you there is a lot of nerds in the world.
Yeah, this was my initial thought, that you actually didn't go with the broad topic. You went with a really niche thing. And, for a lot of people, it's so difficult to choose among all the options, like what you're gonna focus on. Right. So I think your other secret power is like a focus on one thing. Wow, interesting, man.
Yeah, the fact that it's a niche for sure.
Would you say that your network is also something that you want to thank, or network appeared as a result of the podcast more?
Yeah, it's much more like that. When I started the podcast, I didn't know anybody. Nobody knew me. And actually, the podcast gave me back so much, because now I know so many people thanks to the show, because the show is well known in the field. And so, yeah, like now, so it's funny because at the beginning, people were asking me, but how are you going to maintain that? Like, how are you going to find topics and guests and so on? And it's literally never been a problem at all.
Never. First, because how did you find guests? These scientists. Yeah. It's not like they grow on trees, right?
Well, they kind of do. Like, there is a lot of amazing people doing amazing scientific things in the world. It's just like we don't really hear a lot about them. So at the beginning, it was a lot just me being curious, and I'm just a naturally curious person who loves to learn. So anything I want to learn about, I Google people who work on that and are very renowned for what they do in that field. And then I contact them and see if they want to come to the show. And that's how I mainly did things at the beginning, when nobody knew about neither me or the show. And now it's much easier, because I still reach out to people to come on the show when I see people doing interesting things that I'm curious about. But also I get a lot of people recommending me to come on the show. So that I do a lot. Like when I get a recommendation from someone, like a former guest or people who listen to the show that I know, they are here often, I know about them and they recommend me someone, then I'll check it out. And if I like it, I invite him. And of course, I get a lot of people trying to get on the show by themselves, but that I almost never do it.
Never do. Wow.
No, unless I know them already. But otherwise, it's just like, it's not a principle, but it's just like, it almost never is a good fit when somebody reaches out to me. Like, it's very funny. Like sometimes it's incredible. Like the show is about Bayesian statistics, and I know, and I don't know, like you've got someone who want to come on the show and talk about business strategies or stuff like that.
Yeah,
I'm like,
they're driven. They're probably driven by your metrics. They see that you have a coverage and they want to get on, but they're not scientists.
Yeah. Yeah.
And speaking of metrics, and speaking of sort of making money from your show, or at least covering some expenses, am I correct that you do have some sponsors?
So I used to, and now I don't, because like the podcast is not really for me a source of income. I've never seen it that way. I really do it because it's a way for me to stay on top of my field, be curious, learn from great people, and just meet people. So now mainly, like, there are some expenses because I need to, pay for the podcast hosts and the website and the web developer and the people who handle the social media and stuff like that. But that I cover mainly through the Patreon of the show. So thanks to the patrons, basically it just like more or less covers the expenses of the show, and that's all. So what I get from the show, I get a lot from the show, a lot of value from the show. I just don't get lots of money value out of it, but it's mainly my choice. Like I'm sure there would be more ways to make money out of the show, but I don't, because I also don't want to mix work and hobby. So that's mostly a choice of mine.
Yeah. Is there a point of growth, development of this show where you might consider putting it more on the fun and financial rails and considering it as a primary earnings driver?
Yeah, maybe like at some point down the road, we'll see. The thing is that I think for that, I'll need to expand the audience. And so for that, I'll probably need to I probably will need to be less niche. And I'm not sure. I mean, I don't want to do that right now. And I'm not sure I will ever want to do that, because what's like the fun part of the show is precisely that it's a niche show. And I don't go into, like broad topics that I don't necessarily care about. That's one thing. And second thing, as you attract more people, you attract more detrimental people. let's call it that way. And so that's not
Haters.
necessarily the audience. Like I don't care about that audience. My audience is great, and yeah, like I enjoy interacting with them. Whereas if you grow, you necessarily interact with people you don't want to interact with. And so, yeah, like it's not something I want in my life right now.
I'll tell you the one lesson that I've extracted from our conversation, and I will let you finish up strong by asking the main lesson for you from your podcasting journey. What I've heard is that the key to your success is not thinking about others, but thinking about the right others and thinking about yourself, about thinking about your growth, thinking about, as you said, staying on top of your field and contributing to people who you really care and who you want to, bring value to in terms of your scientific community. So I think for all the podcasters who want to get to thousands of listens and views and downloads, I think the lesson here is to stay patient and not think about so much, other people, but maybe just grow your own game in whatever field, a better specific field of your choice. This is my takeaway. And what will be your main lesson? To share a practical lesson, something that people can do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's going to depend on people's objective and what they want to do with, let's say, if they want to create a podcast. But, it's mainly in the book world, in the author world, usually authors say that they write the book they needed to read. And so for me, the podcast was exactly that. I created the podcast I wanted to listen to. Something that's gonna be very helpful in these endeavors is always to think about, okay, how can I help myself basically and help people and your people? So probably if you have a problem, a lot of other people have the same problem. And so just think about a way to solve your own problem.
You're helping yourself and you're helping others in the same breath.
Exactly. Yeah. My problem was that I don't know how to learn Bayesian statistics, and I need to do that right now in a medium that I like and trust, like the audio medium. So let's try a podcast. And that solved my problem, but I'm obviously not a special snowflake. So it solved the problem, the same problem that a lot of similar people were having. So that's one of the main things is think about the avatar basically of your show, right? Like, who do you want to help?
Yeah.
What does that person look like? What do they do? What do they need? Why would they even listen to that show? That's one of the main things. And then the other one that's extremely important is just being able to try stuff out and, fail. Like, this has been one of the most important. The other most important thing for me has been related to, at the same time I was doing the podcast, I learned how to code. And now, unfortunately, with AI, it's a bit blurred. But at the time, you need to learn how to program. And learn how to program is awesome because you're going to fail all the time. Like, your program and your model are going to fail all the time until you get to a point where it's like, okay, that's good enough. And so learning how to program was amazing for me because it taught me that failure is fine. And actually, it's awesome because it gives you quick feedback. And having this quick feedback loop on how to improve your program and your model, and then get to a point where it's good enough and you don't need it to be excellent and perfect. You need it to be good enough. That was amazing because it drilled into my mindset that, well, you need feedback to interact with the world. And that's how you're going to grow. and make this better. And so, yeah, that's also how I made the show better, thanks to that, because I tried things, and if it didn't work, I'm like, I didn't let that being personal, but I wanted to take that as feedback. So yeah, that. And also the third lesson is, honestly, I do the show again that I like. It's just like sometimes people are like, oh, why don't you talk about that or this? I'm like, yeah, I don't care. So, and it's my show. So like I invite people that work on stuff I care about. So that's also important, I think, because this is hard work. It takes time, it takes persistence. And if you don't like it, you're not going to stick around.
Wonderful way of finishing the conversation. Thanks so much, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sergey. That was a pleasure to be in.